Should the Indianapolis Colts' latest moves and additions make you more optimistic for this upcoming season or less optimistic? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and my partner Jake Arthur is our credentialed boots on the ground for the site. It is our final episode before we get into a game week run of episodes here where we get into our normal run, throughout the entire season. You guys know and love everything we do there. So we're going to kind of branch out and do kind of overview stuff and then some just housework stuff, essentially, with how we view this roster and everything. So we're going to end the show with potential moves the Colts could make for their practice squad or their roster to make this team better prior to the season. We're going to also dive into strengths and weaknesses of the roster, what we feel most confident in saying about this team. But before we get into all that, let's have more of an open conversation here, Jake, about just our viewpoint on this roster, how much it's changed in recent weeks even from just the end of training camp to now, kind of how we're feeling just vibes-wise, I guess, going into the season. So, Jake, you were there covering this team from day one of training camp all the way until the end, seeing how this team was growing, seeing guys move up and down the depth chart, being there for the starting quarterback named. How do you feel about this team as of right now compared to maybe how you felt coming into training camp?
Yeah, I think from the first day of the offseason, there's been a different tone to this team. They have been intentional and aggressive about making impactful moves, I think. And in turn, that's put pressure on them. Like, I think we already kind of figured this was a do or die season for most people, but especially Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, and Anthony Richardson. I think that is firmly in place now. You look at the moves they've made. They spent money in free agency. Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, those are win now moves. You can go into Xavier Howard. Like, yes, I know he's kind of over the hill, but number one, they didn't have to even go out and get a veteran. We've seen them in the past be like, all right, we had a couple guys go down. We're going to put our depth to the test and see if the moves we made to get the doldrums of our roster going, if those are going to work or not. They're not settling for that. And I think a big part of that is the Lou Anarumo effect. I think we're very much seeing the cachet that guy has in this building. Like, it feels like whatever he has said he's wanted, it's happened. But no, they've put, I think, a lot of pressure on themselves with the moves they've made. We've seen the cornerback room. If anyone goes down with a bump, it's like they're working out three notable players on the outside, or they're bringing in people to compete. The cornerback room has already been churned so much. Like Corey Ballentine, when they picked him up in free agency, we're like, that's a respectable move for like a 5'6" corner. Like, he started, I think it was like 11 games. He was like one of the first corners to go. Like, they have clearly shown they're not satisfied with just being fine. They want a lot of these areas to be as good as possible. And, I think I like that they've done that. Like, that's not a bad thing. But at the same time, all these moves they're making, if it doesn't work, if it's a disappointing season, I have zero idea what everyone can do to stick around after this. Like, it looks like they're throwing all their resources at it. And if it doesn't work, it's probably just going to have to be time to move on.
Yeah, I will say that, we were big proponents here on this episode, on this show, of saying that when they named Daniel Jones the starting quarterback, that it was all the excuses are out the window. Like, you got to win this year. But I think it's more than just the Daniel Jones move that are pointing this Colts team into a win or die situation, essentially, where, you're looking at the Xavier Howard signing, where it's like, again, the last couple years, a player goes down with injury. It's like, well, don't worry, we got Dallas Flowers. Don't worry, we have Samuel Womack off waivers. Like, it's fine. Now it's like, oh, Justin Wally went down. Let's go get Xavier Howard. Let's work out Mike Hilton. Let's get these other veteran guys in here. Jalen Carlisle is not healthy. Let's get Anthony Walker working out. Let's get Kaiser White working out. Let's add Chad Muma off waivers. So it really is the lack of complacency and like the just a pure urgency with this team that we're seeing going into the season that we really haven't seen from Chris Ballard and company before. And I think part of that is, again, just they're not having the patient route of a young quarterback. They're putting the 28-year-old quarterback in there. But also I think it's the new ownership. The new ownership, there is this rush to show this new ownership that, hey, we have a good thing going here. If we can make the playoffs this year, we can really make our pitch to them in the offseason. But I think that's the ultimate goal from everything they've done. But the one question I really want to pose to you, Jake, is with the recent additions, with all the veterans they've been adding, with moving to Jones as a starting quarterback this year, in your mind, do you think that they are closer to the playoffs now than they were coming into training camp?
That's tough. Number one, I like that you said urgency. I think that was a great way to describe what they've done this year. I can't say. I like their intention with what they're doing. Like, I believe that they believe what they're doing gets them closer. You know what I mean? I'm not like super inspired by the Daniel Jones move, but at the same time, I do believe that is Shane Steichen banking on him. Like, I think he thinks that move allows them to get to the playoffs. It's a very similar situation to 2023. And I think Jones is a little bit of an upgrade over Gardner Minshew personally. And Shane just wants that guy that's going to execute his offense the way he wants it to be done. And he doesn't have to worry about the variance of Anthony Richardson. I get that. I still think Anthony Richardson offers them the ability to get over the hump, and you're just going to have to live with the bumps in the road with him. With Jones, like it can work. It could be unspectacular, but it can work if Shane, kind of throws all the resources in it that we've seen, especially in 2023 from a play calling standpoint. I thought he did a lot of really cool things. Like there was a lot of wrinkles that did not look like a normal, boring offense, even though he kind of had a very limited quarterback pulling the strings there with Minshew. So I still have some big questions to be answered, I think, but I would say they think they're closer to making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I will say, just again, from all the moves that we've seen this offseason, a lot of it has been the priority of how can we raise the floor for right now. Again, Xavier Howard coming in is a big part of that, but even other smaller moves, and our guy Owen Stevens here in the comment section is giving me a good thing to work off of here. He says every upside piece is gone, and it's a bit better, but is it enough to really make it, much less be an impact? And I do agree that, like, in the past, again, we've seen the Colts lean into the young guys with upside, where it's like we're keeping this athletic linebacker, we're keeping Isaiah Land at the bottom of the roster just to marinate and see what he can be. But this year it's been, look, when it came down to the final defensive tackle, they went with Eric Johnson over Tim Smith, who I think Johnson had a better preseason. But again, you typically would go with just the younger player there if it's that close. When it came to the bottom of the defensive end depth chart, instead of trying to keep an Isaiah Land, it was bringing in more stuff, bringing in more guys that help now instead of keeping that stash player at the bottom. Really, the only kind of stash player that we see is Jonathan Edwards on the team. And honestly, that's maybe just my perception of him being a stash player. He might be a guy they view high enough to contribute this year. They did give him a pretty big undrafted free agent guarantee. So, I think a lot of it's been about raising the floor, and I think they certainly have raised the floor in a lot of ways. Like, you're not going to be trotting out Juju Brents hoping that he figures it out and giving him multiple games to work through it. And if there's issues, there's issues. You're putting out an Xavier Howard, and I think there's going to be pretty quick triggers on both sides of the ball where if a guy's not performing, they're going to pull him. I don't think it's going to be like a Dalton Tucker situation last year where it took 6 games for them to pull him. I think if Matt Consalve struggles through 3 or 4 weeks, 2 weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, I think they make a change there. And I think that's what we're going to see from the team this year. So does this make them closer to the playoffs? I think it probably does. Again, Richardson, you were banking on just the 1% chance that it clicks for him and it ends up turning your team into an early rendition of the Bills with Josh Allen. But I think just overall having a quarterback who can just do what the coaches says, who can move the offense, keep you on the field for good sustained drives, keep your defense fresh, and then getting veterans who can communicate and know the system on defense, raising the floor behind those guys, it probably made them closer to the playoffs. But ultimately, it's going to come down to those lucky bounces that can get them in. And that'll be what makes or breaks the season. So I don't think my overall perception of the team has changed much from day one of the offseason to now, because I still think they're like a fringe playoff team, but maybe they close the margins a little bit, in terms of like, again, with Richardson and with the Juju Brentzes and with those type of players that you would be giving a lot of snaps to, you had this wide variance of what they could be. But because you have Jones, because you have Howard, because Eric Johnson instead of Tim Smith, just those little margins there, I think they close the margin of error just a little bit to where they're probably going to perform around what this team is capable of, which is, again, like a fringe playoff team. But again, it's not as volatile or as expansive of a range, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I think that's fair. It seems like they're banking on a lot of guys they feel are safer and they don't have to have as much patience for. It honestly feels in a way like how Ryan Grigson kind of built those Andrew Luck teams quickly, like throwing veterans at it because they were ready to win right now because they had Andrew Luck, but more like the Matt Hasselbeck Colts teams, if that makes sense. And Hasselbeck wasn't terrible. Like they're kind of treading in those same waters right now. But Daniel Jones isn't like 38 or whatever Hasselbeck was at the time. But guys, we're going to keep this conversation rolling, but kind of get into things like Zach and I are comfortable declaring about this team. Like what factors really get our confidence points in this team in 2025? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Hey, Locked On Colts fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use our limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already need. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. I bought a truck that I've never had a truck before. It's not got great gas mileage, and the tank is like over 20 gallons. So I'm really feeling it this year. And real people like me, they're getting paid just to make their daily commutes, whether you got to buy gas all the time or not. And you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using our limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. And you guys know the NFL season is back. We're talking next week. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it can be pretty frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. I don't obviously use it for NFL games, but I've used it several times for concerts, and it kicks in every single time. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime in just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals, and I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. I love the zone deals too. You just pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats and saves you big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, welcome back, everydayers. We are having a nice little conversation about the Colts season here. But first, please do not forget that we put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts here on the network even better. Please go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. The link is in our show notes, so be sure to check that out after the show. All right, guys, welcome back. We are talking about the Colts 2025 season, and we're shifting this conversation into things we are most confident in declaring about this team this year. So, Zach, why don't you start us off here? What's something when you think about this team, you're like, all right, this is definitely going to be how it is?
Well, I'm not always the most optimistic person on here, so I'm going to go pretty optimistic when it comes to this one. And it's not in like, hey, Quentin Nelson's going to be good, because we know Quentin Nelson's going to be good. But I think I'm gonna go out there and say I think Tanner Bortolini is going to be a really good center for the Colts this season. I'm not as confident in Matt Gonsalves, even though I do think that Matt Gonsalves can get there by the end of the season. But Tanner Bortolini, I saw enough in the offseason. I saw enough from his rookie season, even his college film, where I think this is going to be a really good center for the Colts. There will be some issues with the anchoring and with single pass blocking, but I think as a run blocker, especially on those zone runs, I think as a free guy in pass protection where he can help with his eyes and help with stunts, I think he's going to be a fantastic center for the team. So keeping this on a more of a micro level, just going with one player, one area that I'm really confident is Tanner Bortolini establishing himself as a really good center for the Colts. I'm very optimistic, especially when Quentin Nelson is next to him on that left side. I think he's going to be a darn good player for this team.
I really like that one. I especially like the idea of the center that's considered undersized but more athletic than the normal center. Those guys can find a way to be special players, and I've already heard from within the building, with Sperano talk about not only Bortolini's ability to pick things up quickly mentally, but just things that cannot be taught or coached or anything, like his flexibility. Like, he gets his body into these weird jams, but where he's still able to keep his strength to make a block successful. So I'm really interested to see how his game grows. And that's going to kind of lead me into my next point here, which is bigger than just a single player. But I think, overall, neither of us are in love with the quarterback situation, whether it was Anthony or Daniel. I would still have reservations if it was Anthony. But I do think this is the best opportunity for Shane Steichen to be in his bag with this offense. I think it should be the most complete offense he's had in Indy. If the offensive line is at least average, I'm not going to go out and say the line is going to be top 10 again, because they're working in 2 new starters. Let's be realistic. I think they'll be at least average though. But this is the first time he's had a stud tight end here. Jonathan Taylor just got done rushing for 1,400 yards last year, despite missing 3 games. They have a quarterback that they're confident can just get them by doing what they ask. And then this group of pass catchers, I already mentioned Tyler Warren, but Pittman, Downs, Pierce, if A.D. Mitchell gives you anything more than he did last year, this is a pretty complete offense overall. And some of the unique things that we saw Shane do in 2023, early on when he had Anthony Richardson, and even still when he had Gardner, I think if he keeps that creativity up and doesn't ask A.D. Mitchell to throw the ball or anything, I think this is going to be a successful offense. And if you look at areas that were really, really bad last year, they were 30th in time of possession. They almost never won the time of possession battle. 30th at 27.44 per game last year. They're going to be much better offensively, and especially in time of possession. I think these drives are going to last a lot longer.
Yeah, we'll see explosive plays dip a little bit, but we'll see just more success rate, hopefully. That's what they're hoping for, I guess, this season. Flipping over to the defense side of the ball, when it comes to my confidence level, for the first time in the Chris Ballard era, I think the Colts are going to have a better pass defense than run defense this season. Pretty confident in that, especially with just the personnel they have on this team. I know the cornerback room is banged up. I know Nick Cross is still not practicing, which is terrifying.
He actually is back.
He is back. Okay, good. Because I was terrified for a second there on who could start week 1. But even with all that, I was going to say the pass defense would be better. Traditionally, with Lou Anarumo, his pass defenses have been more of the shining example of his defense than his run defense. And then we're looking at just the 90-something% nickel rate they're going to be in this year. It's going to be so much on run gap integrity in this run defense. And we saw some issues with that last year with the Colts. And I think it's going to be a bit rocky at times, especially with I like the starters on the Colts defensive line, but behind the starters on the Colts defensive line, I'm not really sold on anybody there, especially a defensive tackle. So I think we're going to see some leaky run defense, but I think this pass defense is going to creep into that like top 15-ish range. I don't want to be too crazy optimistic here because they are potentially starting Xavier Howard in week 1 on the outside, which could be a disaster. But I think overall this is going to be like a top 15 to 18-ish pass defense and probably like outside the top 20 in run defense, unless Grover Stewart just goes absolutely crazy, which he could. But I feel very confident in this pass defense relative to where it's been in pretty much the entirety of the Chris Ballard era. I mean, if you go for yards allowed per game or even EPA per play, the best they've been is like 15th or so, 16th or so. They're typically in the bottom 5, bottom 6 in Ballard's era. I think this is going to be one of the better pass defenses respective to his career here, but probably the worst run defense they've had because there's going to be such a priority on suffocating the pass lanes that run defense will certainly get a little leaky this year.
I completely agree with that one. I think a lot of the guys they have defensively, especially with the personnel they're going to use, are better pass defenders than run defenders, and guys are going to have to be on their P's and Q's like all the time in order for it to be a successful run defense. But hopefully it doesn't get to that point. I think they're definitely going to have their warts, but hopefully it's not a thing where like it clearly is killing the defense and they're going to have to like use bare fronts and go super heavy. Cause I really don't think Lou wants to do that. But we're running long on this segment. I don't care. I got to get this one in real quick.
Okay.
Because we have heard a lot back and forth, whether we've talked about Daniel Jones or whether we've talked about Anthony. We have been accused of hating either one or fanboying either one. And I'm here to say, I don't care what happens this year. I'm like all on board with a quarterback being priority number 1 in 2026. I don't think there's any way you can look at this and say that either of these guys is the long-term answer. I don't want to completely doubt Anthony. I think like he could still maybe be a successful quarterback in the league. But I don't think the Colts are going to be the organization that takes the time to figure that out. Like, look at what's happening right now. It doesn't make sense. It feels like everyone is fighting for their jobs this year. Like, that's probably the main reason Daniel Jones is the quarterback in the first place. And even if Daniel Jones is awesome this year, and like, is this year's like Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold isn't even with that team anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's a really, really good chance that quarterback is priority number 1 again going into next season. That doesn't mean they don't have like a bridge quarterback, like a bridge veteran, and it could even be Daniel. Who knows? But I've got to imagine their long-term answer at quarterback is not on the team right now.
I think that's probably a good bet, but because the season's right around the corner, we can table that for either week 6, week 7, or hopefully week 18 or week 19. We'll have that
conversation again.
Well, hopefully it's after the season because the season went well and not in like week 6 or 7, but we'll see. We'll table that for the future. I'm willing to let this play out this year and see what it is. I'm open-minded right now, guys. I know I've been very rigid in the past. I'm open-minded right now. I want to see what happens. But coming up, guys, we're going to still talk about this current roster. Where could the Colts make some additions? Are we feeling good with it? And could they add some veterans to the bottom of the roster or the practice squad coming up in the next couple days?
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is a wrap, and college football is here. And whether you got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. There is one of these kind of layup weekly flyers that PrizePicks has got rolling out this week or next week. Dak Prescott, max discount. That's next Thursday's game. You guys think he's going to go above or below a half a passing yard? I feel confident in one direction. Let's say you. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used PrizePicks a bunch for a few seasons now, and I just love how simple it is. I could get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back, everydayers. We are talking expectations for the Colts 2025 season. We've kind of given a general vibes overview as well as things we're really confident in declaring. But now we're going to talk about things we think will still happen, what we think should still happen. And that it's not necessarily in this next week before the season starts, but like throughout the year, up to the trade deadline, what have you. And, what the Colts have been doing very clearly tells us like rosters always churn throughout the season, but they're still being intentional with impact moves, it seems. This week they worked out linebackers Kaiser White, Anthony Walker, nickel Mike Hilton. All those players have been impactful players at some point in their careers. None of them coming off really the best times of their careers. But Anthony Walker has familiarity with this franchise, obviously was drafted here, played his first 4 years. Mike Hilton and Lou Anarumo were here for a while. And Kaiser White was a guy we were trumpeting on the free agent market here all offseason. So all three of those guys fit. So we know they're still going to try some things. So I guess I'll start there, Zach. Any of those three, you could bring in Derek Forrest or any of the other guys they worked out. Would you bring any of them in right now, or would you just kind of keep them on speed dial for if there were injuries or something crop up during the season?
Yeah, I mean, I probably try to bring them in on the practice squad. You can have up to 6 vets on the practice squad, vested veterans. So guys who have played in 3 or more games in 4 seasons of their career. You can have up to 6 of those guys on your practice squad. The Colts are currently sitting at 5, so they can make some more room. I know their practice squad is completely full right now, but if you waive another player and then also release one of those veterans, then you could add like 2 of these guys to your practice squad. And personally, I think adding like a Mike Hilton to the practice squad would be a benefit to everyone. Getting him in back with Lou Anarumo, he can be like a guy who can help with the communication and help with, like a player like Xavier Howard who hasn't played under Lou Anarumo in almost a decade. At this point, you probably want to get just the communication up to speed. And Mike Hilton knows this system better than probably anyone on the Colts at this point. Like Joe Bocci is maybe the only other guy who knows this system as well because of his years with Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati. So, I think getting a Hilton in here and then whoever looked better in their workout between Kaiser White and Anthony Walker, they're probably around the same at this point in their careers. White is coming off a year that wasn't great last year. Walker has been pretty good every year of his career except for the injuries popping up in recent years. So you don't know how much he's really got left in the tank at this point. But either one of those guys, whoever impressed in their workout more, I'd be fine with adding both of them to the practice squad. And then, I hate to say it because the preseason is fresh in everyone's mind, but you could just release like a Laquan Treadwell to make space off the practice squad. And look, Treadwell's never going anywhere. He's got his roots in Indy these last couple of years. He's probably not going to sign to anyone else. He knows that the Colts like him. So you could probably have like a Treadwell more on speed dial than one of these guys who might get added to a different practice squad in the next couple of days here. So yeah, I'm all for just adding more vets. I think if you're going for more win now, you're going for more floor raising moves. I think getting like a Kaiser White or Mike Hilton just in your organization now, it kind of helps your end goal of trying to be competitive this season.
Yeah, when it comes to Walker and Hilton, I definitely think Walker and White, I think there's definitely benefits to both. Both are captains, I believe. I'm not sure about Hilton, but like probably. But yeah, so Walker, very, very high football IQ and like kind of a coach on the field type. The injuries scare me. Like he signed 1-year deals in Cleveland each of the 3 years after he left Indy and was on IR each year. So injuries have definitely been a thing for him. White has been a productive player. I think he's had 100 plus tackles in 3 of the last 4 years. And the one he didn't get was like 90 tackles. So that's obviously not everything, but if you're looking for like linebacker help and it's essentially September now, that's a pretty productive player at this stage of the game. So if you need someone to contribute pretty quickly, White is probably your guy. But I do like, from the perspective you said, Hilton could be like kind of a coach to these guys, Walker as well. And then for Hilton, we keep, not just us, but like I don't feel like anyone is talking about Mekhi Blackmon still. He's, had the ACL last year coming in. Everything I understand from him in Minnesota this summer, it was like not great as he gets back from that ACL. But even a guy like him, Hilton could be a great sounding board and influence for him to quickly get acclimated if they see him as kind of a backup nickel. I mean, Chris Lamons is already there, but he's practice squad. So I'd be okay with them adding any three of those guys. I see why they would do it now that it's been a couple days. I was a little skeptical about a couple of them at first, but yeah, I would do that. So what about positions? Like, this doesn't have to, we talked about this a little recently with like post cuts and like waiver wire stuff, but is there any positions you see now that it's like the end of the week from cut week that you think really need to be addressed?
Yeah, but say these are more just areas of concern, I guess, on the roster. I still think linebacker is one that you need to keep adding. And Chris Ballard mentioned that. That's why we saw the workouts for Kaiser White, Anthony Walker. I think Neville Hewitt was also one of their workouts as well, another veteran who's been around the league a little bit. Because I watched some Chad Muma film, and let's keep him on special teams. Let's keep he turns like me out there. Let's keep him on special teams. He's athletic, straight lines, and he can be like a good blitzer type guy, but I don't want him on defense. Like, I want him like a Grant Stewart, like keep him away from the real defense and keep him on special teams. But I think there's still room to add like a White or a Walker there. And then again, that interior defensive line depth is terrifying to me. Like putting your faith in Eric Johnson for a fourth time is a little scary to me. A guy who was waived this past offseason by the Patriots. And I still think they could have gotten to the practice squad. I don't know if anyone else would have claimed him. So yeah, it is a little nervous to me to like rely on him to be your backup nose tackle, or even worse, if Gallimore's your backup nose tackle. Again, he has got the size, but I don't think he's got
his game isn't nose
right.
tackle.
He doesn't got like the moxie for it, I guess, is kind of a lack of a better term. So I really want a nose tackle in here that is just a two gapping, like space eating big guy on the interior. And I don't think they have that still on the roster. So like, I think Mike Pennell got released by the Kansas City Chiefs. He's an older guy, like 33 years old, just pure run stuffer and nothing else. If he's interested in coming to Indy, like get him on the phone, man. I'd rather have him here just to eat some space. But I think it's going to bite them in the butt like it has the last like 4 years on defense. Like they've had a good run defense the last 3 or 4 years regardless. But we do see the drop off when Stewart is off the field. And again, I still think we're going to see that this year, but even with a leakier run defense than what we saw in recent seasons. So I think they're playing with fire when it comes to the backup nose tackle, especially if, Stewart's maybe rotating out. Like, say he's only playing like 60% of the snaps, 62% of the snaps. I think those other snaps are going to be really concerning when Stewart is not out there on run defense.
I agree. And Owen here also mentioned, can we sign someone who we know is a real human being at tackle, like someone we've seen? What the Colts have been doing, I would be surprised if they didn't still make a move at backup offensive tackle. I mean, like if you look at cornerback, again, we mentioned everyone who's needed a Band-Aid, they've gone out and worked someone out or brought someone in, as help. So going into it with mid-round rookie Jalen Travis and Luke Tenuta as your backup tackles, that kind of runs counter to everything you've been doing so far this offseason. So I'm very concerned at backup offensive tackle, because also, as we know around here, your backup tackles are gonna be playing. And like Braden Smith, like, has not had the best bill of health physically either, throughout his career, especially the last few years. And Bernard Ryman misses time as well. So they need more than what they've got there. And then to your point at nose tackle, again, whether they want to trade for someone, whatever they do have to get a real backup nose tackle in there. Your Al Woods type, like you mentioned, Pennell from the Chiefs. I feel like, was there a little smoke there like a couple years ago? That like Pennell to the Colts felt familiar at one point.
Probably because Chris Ballard loves his Chiefs players. That's probably what it was. But yeah, I've been begging for this for a long time. Again, EPA per play wise, the Colts run defense has been good for like essentially each of the last 9 years with Chris Ballard. Like they've always had a pretty competent run defense, even in the bad moments. It's overall been better than what we expect. But again, you're playing with fire this year. Lou Anarumo's defenses are much better against the pass than the run. And Grover Stewart's not going to save your butt this year, like he has in years past. So I'm a little concerned about it, but we'll see. We'll see in week 1 against the Miami Dolphins when they have this 4-2 speed running back and a couple other guys and a really cool zone run system. where you really have to be good with your gap integrity and filling run lanes, it'll be put to the test as long as Achane can actually stay healthy in that first game. So we'll have all that next week as we break down everything going into that Miami Dolphins game for week 1 of the Indianapolis Colts season. But first, guys, it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Amazon Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here next week, Monday next week for game week.